Hey everyone, welcome back to Challenged Athletes Live. My name is Bob Babbitt, co-founder of Challenged Athletes Foundation. Our next guest, Mr. Jake Eastwood, joins us. Jake, how are you doing?
I'm good. How about you?
I am wonderful. So talk a little bit about growing up and what sports did you play when in your early years before you ended up losing your leg?
Yeah, so I played a bunch of sports when I was younger. I grew up in Washington, family of five, and we're basically a very athletic family. My parents loved to get me involved with everything, so I was involved with like basketball, soccer, a little bit of like flag football, and of course basketball, and like track and field also.
So December 29, 2014, you're 12 years old, you're diagnosed with osteosarcoma and a very rare form of bone cancer.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about what were you feeling before you were diagnosed? Were you having a lot of leg pain? Was it bothering you in sport? What was going on?
Oh yeah, so I didn't really sit until about like 2, 3 weeks before my diagnosis. So I basically had pain in my left like femur area in the
Yeah.
inside of it, and so I was like complaining about pain, like playing sports and all that. And then we were kind of like feeling down there. We could just feel a bump, so we were like, "Oh, better to get it checked out." And that's when we found out the news.
So that diagnosis, it had to just be awful for you. How did you react to it?
Yeah, I mean, I was young, so I didn't know too much was going on. I mean, I was 12, but like, like I was still like, I think I was more in shock. And then once we got everything going, started chemotherapy, everything like that, that's when it all kind of started to hit me. So like after that, I was kind of like, I was mostly just in shock.
Yeah. And that next year you're going through limb salvage and
Mhm.
chemotherapy. And when did you get to the point where you realize, you know what, maybe I'm better off without this leg?
Yeah, so I got diagnosed again. So I was like a year off treatment, and then I got diagnosed again after my year scans, and
Yeah.
that's when it was in my knee, so I didn't really have any other choice. So at that point, we had to amputate it. But after that, after the fact I amputated, I'm very glad I did. I'm much more mobile now, and like I have a lot more opportunities now that I have it amputated.
How long was it before you got back in the sport?
So I think it was about 6 months or so.
And
Maybe before that. I'm not totally sure.
what sports did you get into to begin with?
So I was swimming a lot. I got introduced to swimming, and then I also went to a couple of Challenge Athletes Foundation, like the one in Portland
Hmm.
at the Nike facility, and got introduced to sit down volleyball and wheelchair basketball.
And wheelchair basketball became your go-to sport?
Yeah, I immediately fell in love with it once I hopped in the chair. I was a little iffy at first, but as soon as I hopped in the chair, I loved it.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of times amputees will get in a wheelchair and they feel, is it okay for me to be playing ball in a wheelchair
Yeah,
because I'm not paralyzed?
that's how
But
I felt.
you felt that way too.
Yeah, I felt that way a lot.
And but then you realize that a lot of amputees play wheelchair basketball and other
Mm,
sports like that.
yeah, for sure.
And what was it about wheelchair basketball that you like so much?
Well, I always loved basketball from like before I had my amputation, so like that was a factor. But then also like I saw how competitive the guys were, because like I said at first, or like you were saying, like when you see wheelchair basketball, you don't think of like competitive, like holy crap, these dudes. But then once you actually like experience it like in person, it's a whole different story. So just like seeing that really changed my mind to it.
And so when you play wheelchair basketball, it's one thing to use a borrowed chair, but it's always nice to have your own.
Mhm.
When did you get your own chair?
So I got a chair lended to me by one of my teammates, or a guy on the older men's team, and it fit me
Yeah.
pretty well. But I got granted a Challenge Athletes Foundation granted me a chair, and that was about a year ago. And ever since then, it makes a lot of difference. Like it's way more of a difference than I ever thought that I.
So is it with wheelchair basketball? Is that something that you're thinking is this something where you could end up going to college to play or potentially
Yeah.
to the Olympics? What are your goals at this point?
So right now, I'm getting recruited to play for college and playing college ball. So I'm excited to do that. And then in the future, I want to be a Paralympian one day.
That is so cool. I mean, who would have thought, right? You probably weren't thinking I'm going to get a scholarship before of course, you're 12 years old, but you probably weren't going to be a collegiate basketball player. But now you can be a collegiate basketball player. What schools are you thinking?
Right now, I'm interested in Arizona, Auburn, and Missouri.
So cool.
Yeah.
Wheelchair basketball takes people to a lot of places. Where have you played? Obviously, this year has been a tough year, but where have you played when you've traveled for wheelchair basketball?
Yeah, so we've traveled a lot of places. Some top of my mind is like Chicago. Traveled. That's probably the farthest we've traveled. Yeah, Chicago. Yeah. And then we have a bunch of tournaments like in Portland, California, Spokane, everywhere like that.
So during this time, during COVID time, how obviously there haven't been many tournaments. How have you been able to refine your game and work on your skills so that you will get that college scholarship?
Yeah, so it's been tough, but I've been lifting and pushing in my wheelchair like every day, 3 times a week, how many days I can get out there. I try to get out.
Do you have some ball players that you look up to who have helped mentor you along the way?
Yeah, there's definitely people I look up to. Good buddy of mine, Luke Robinson. He plays for Auburn now. Me and him worked out, so he was kind of like my buddy through all this, like helping me out.
Did you meet him down in Oregon at the Nike?
Yeah, I did. That's when I met him for the first time. He introduced me.
That is so cool. So is he recruiting you pretty hard to go down there?
Yeah, he wants me to go down, but he knows it's my decision.
That's very cool. Now, and besides wheelchair basketball, what other options? What other things you do?
Right now?
Yeah. Or is it all wheelchair basketball 100%?
It's pretty much all wheelchair basketball, but like I can go out and swim or like anything like that. I'm pretty mobile.
I've watched a lot of video of Steve Sirio, and that guy's pretty damn impressive. We'll talk a little bit about getting to meet him and how you've met him. You met Isaiah Peed, Shaquem Griffin. There's been some pretty cool athletes you have the opportunity to meet. How cool is all that?
Yeah, it was very cool just to like see their experiences and like talk to Steve a little bit, like what he goes through and like because he started in high school around the same time as me, I'm pretty sure. So like just hearing his experiences through high school and colleges were really good to me.
When you look back, what's been your favorite CAF moment?
The triathlon's always a good one. And then I also like the Nike facility one because it's just cool to see all the Nike. Like I'm interested in that, so it's cool to me.
Since you were the young kid at the time when you're 12 years old, now you're sort of becoming that guy who can be a role model for the next kid.
Yeah.
How is when you come down the San Diego Triathlon Challenge or when you're at the Nike facility, do you start seeing yourself moving into that role? You see new kids who are getting into this and might be thinking the same thing you were. Hey, I'm an amputee. I shouldn't be playing wheelchair basketball. And how do you respond to those guys?
Yeah, I just tell them to pretty much just try it. Like, I mean, it's all come so quick. I feel like I was just 12 years old like yesterday, but yeah, I just tell them to like to try it because like at first like I didn't really want to try it, but as soon as I did, I loved it. So that's just my main thing that I say to people that are trying to get into it.
After you had lost your leg, what type of response did you get from the kids at school? Obviously, kids can be mean or kids can be supportive. What were you getting from kids at school?
So I had a really good friend group coming into it. So like I had a very strong friend group and like the town that I live in, like very close together. So like I didn't have an issue with like people being mean to me or anything. I mean, there's always like stares and questions and all that, but like that's something you have to get used to as an amputee. But yeah, as far as that, like I didn't have any main issues.
Yeah. During this time when people can't get together, have you had kids and other families reach out to you to get some of your thoughts on how they can potentially help their son through or daughter through this time?
Yeah, I've had a couple people. Are you talking about like new amputees and stuff?
Yep.
Yeah, so like I've had a couple of people reach out to me that are going through Seattle Children's Hospital, and just like
Yes.
want advice, maybe not on like sports wise, but like going through like the cancer experience and all that.
What's
People,
been the toughest part for you about being an amputee?
just like probably getting used to everyday life. That's pretty much it. But like I caught on pretty quickly, but that was probably the most difficult.
What was the toughest one? Just getting out of the house, getting in the
Yeah,
car, all that type of stuff.
just like having to worry about like having like a leg, like if I want to go to the lake, like I have to take it off or something like that.
Yeah, you have to make sure that you want to keep it dry. You want to make sure that you're
Yeah, exactly.
all that type of stuff. Very
That's
cool.
probably the first part.
Hey, Jake, it's great having you part of the CAF family. I love everything you bring to the table for us. You've made some good friends through
Yeah, I made
through CAF?
made a lot of good friends through CAF.
Love it. Hey, thanks for taking time. Thanks for being with us on Challenged Athletes Live. We love having you part of the CAF family, and best of luck. Hopefully you'll get, when do you find out about scholarship? Will that be next spring?
We're in the middle of a process right now, so like I'll probably end up committing like early spring, probably. Early spring.
You might have to do it on our show. You might have to.
What?
You might have to do it on our show and put the hats
For
out
sure.
for the different colleges, and then tell us which school you're going to.
No, for sure.
Jake Eastwood has been our guest. Jake, thank you so much for taking time being on Challenge Athletes Live.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Jake Eastwood again has been our guest, everybody. Challenge Athletes Live. My name is Bob Babbitt, and we will see you next time.
All right.